As a writer, I am almost always in a state of writer's block. It's not an occasional thing for me. What's occasional is when I'm able to write. Usually I'm pacing around my office or my house, or drive around in my car and listen to music, and I'll go for days without being able to write anything. So as a writer, I've gotten used to writer's block.
Hey, just a quick message before we start the video. I recently recorded an hour-long interview with Jim Uhls, the writer of Fight Club. This is just one of many interviews I've done for the upcoming Behind the Curtain membership. If you want to get access to exclusive interviews like this, sign up for the email newsletter at behindthecurtainfilm.com, and you'll be the first to know when everything goes live.
We actually, in the middle of writing Miller's Crossing, when we were just kind of sick of dealing with the plot, we wrote Barton Fink. In a space of about, that we wrote really quickly in a space of about 3 weeks. So actually, that's how we deal with it. If we get stuck with something, we put it aside and turn to something else.
It's not uncommon that we'll work on, in some, work on it is maybe glorifying it a little bit too much, but we'll turn to something else in the middle of writing some other screenplay, just in order to think about something else when you get stuck at a certain point.
I will just say this about writing is that follow the fun. Follow what is fun to write. And the second you're sick of the idea you're working on, which will happen, sometimes almost immediately, move to the idea that is now fun. This isn't going anywhere. Go follow the fun. If this one's fucked up, move to the next fun one. I had 5 projects open at once before I realized, oh, you know what? This one is starting to make a whole different kind of sense. That's Get Out. Okay, let's focus on this. Now I get what it is, but don't accept writer's block. Well, look, this was something I sort of reached after years and years of dealing with writer's block, and 8 years ago, I found myself really feeling like I wanted to do this, but I lacked the skill to pull off my favorite movie. So the point of writing to me sort of shifted from, Mad TV, getting something on the air, to something I could every time I go out, I get excited about going back home and cracking. Okay, let's get, what's that secret society? Who are they? It was just it was a revelation I had about halfway into my writing career. When you move over to this next project that is fun for whatever reason, so I'm writing this over here, and then I go, you know what? Fuck this. There's this movie about a bunch of chupacabra that's really gnawing at me over here. This seems fun. Let's go figure out what the chupacabra. At some point in this project or this next one over here, you'll have a revelation or unlock something, and you'll be like, oh, that's fucking cool. And you know what? I can take that and put that in here. That kind of solves this problem. So sometimes it does feel like my brain is trying to work out the stumbling block or the writer's block in this, and it knows to find fun in this other project, and you can kind of combine them and compare and say, you know what, Chupacabra film, you are no more. And that's part of following the fun, I think, is leading with the subconscious. I do believe in the idea of starting with images that you don't even quite know why they're important to you. Dreams, smoke a little weed and just listen to some music. And when you connect, when you're doing the work, it's connecting those images. It's trying to answer the question for yourself. Why is that image powerful to me?
When writing, there's sometimes days that feel better than others, where like when I feel like I really kind of understand the characters and the scenes are like the dialogue is flowing, and I feel like, oh, this is like, I guess maybe to say it simply, like it's a day where I feel like, oh, I wrote a good scene today. That's always kind of an exciting feeling, because often I don't have that feeling, and sometimes I'll look back and be, oh, that scene's better than I thought it was, or then the other scene is not as good as I thought it was. But in a way, it doesn't matter, because that flow of being in that place of kind of conscious and unconscious, I mean, I think that's maybe the answer. It's when, like, because the writing is sort of that time for me. It's like where I'm both kind of pushing this story along, but also moment to moment, I'm trying not to censor. I'm live in this space of unconsciousness and consciousness. And when that feels like I kind of could like ride that wave for a little bit, because you never can ride it super long. That's exciting. It isn't magic either. And it isn't.
Yeah.
It isn't whatever the 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. It is that, and sometimes it does take sitting down and just pushing through and writing some scenes and not being precious about, well, am I ready or am I not ready? It's like, well, let's see, because sometimes I might not feel ready, and then I'm able to figure something out.
Yeah, I do, but then you just sort of like start to bullshit on the page. I mean, that's, especially if you're coming into a scene and you're like, wow, I'm really falling back on convention, or I'm doing, this is sort of a recreation of a scene I wrote in something else. That's when I just start to kind of bullshit on the page a bit and figure out what I would want these people to say, and have it have nothing to do with what I think the scene needs to accomplish. In fact, try to avoid that, and naturally it'll start to come back around to it.
I tend not to write a lot, but I can't. I just think a lot about it. That's mostly my writing, is I can't stop thinking about something. So I just kind of cycle it for. Sometimes I can go months without actually putting anything on paper, but there's something happening. I think when I was writing Adaptation, I was concerned about what I saw as writer's block, and I don't feel that way about it anymore. I feel like I understand it now and how it relates to what it is that I do, because I think things percolate, and when you think of things and you think, I do tend to sort of do a kind of a permutation thing in my head a lot, and that sort of just keeps going, and then I come up with something that excites me, and I often think, well, if I had forced my way through this point, I would never have gotten this thing that I really like, 2 months down the road, which changed the experience of the movie. If I had decided that I had to plow through and do The Orchid Thief as The Orchid Thief and not introduce this character of the person trying to write it into it, I mean, I don't think it would have been as good. It certainly wouldn't. I couldn't do it, but I mean, it would have been like this sort of like really kind of crappy, tight little bullshit.
I usually drive is how I find it. I was trying to figure a scene out when I lived in LA, and I ended up in central Montana, and didn't figure it out, so I turned around. I was in like between Vegas and Barstow, and it finally happened. It cost me like $2,000.
Any flaw in the structure or the character of this journey starts showing up for me, like right at that midway point of the second act, and you can sit there and try and force that through, which is for me a mistake, and then I start going back, and you find the reason that problem exists there, is somewhere in the, that bridge from the first act to the second act, or maybe it's even earlier. And I like to edit as I go, so maybe I write 8 pages, and I don't start on page 8 the next day. I go back to page 1, and those 8 pages may become 3 pages, and the next day I start on page 1, and maybe I get 3 more pages out, and then it kind of accordions out like that. And so as I'm writing, I'm still thinking about, oh, this is going to happen here, and I'll jot that note down and try to remember that. So for me, it's when you have ADD as debilitating as mine, this is the most effective way to do it.
See, I think when people think of writer's block, they think of, oh, I'm not writing dialogue today. But I don't think you should look at writer's block. I think some people mistake not having an idea to work on as writer's block. And I think there's a difference. I think not having an idea to work on is the lot of all of us writers. I mean, I will go sometimes a year and not know what I want to write. I'll be taking some rewrite jobs or doing something, but I mean, this idea gestated for quite a number of years before I finally decided what I wanted to do. So I don't think you should never look at yourself. Well, I don't know. I'm not writing today. I'm not. You should. You should not write anything unless you feel passionate about writing it. And I don't mean like, oh, it's going to change the world. Just like passion in the sense of that's a really freaking good idea. As an example, I wrote the original draft of Real Steel. Now, when I came up with the idea at that time, there was something about fighting robots, and it was in the future, and I love boxing, and I started more of a film noir. It got heavily rewritten, but I was profoundly excited by that idea. Once you're passionate about something, writer's block sort of disappears.
I almost always have writer's block because I just, it's a constant fight against procrastination, and I just procrastinate. I watch movies, I read, I listen to music, I do anything that I can to avoid writing.
The thing that's always sort of sparked me out of writer's block would be a song that I heard that kind of was like, ooh, I like that, and something I hadn't heard in a long time or something totally new. Music is always the good inspiration for me.
Never actually got writer's block. I feel like that's something that it's like a nervous disposition thing, like you're worried. I always feel like people are saying, do you worry about the blank page? I'm like, no, worry about page 70, because that's when you'll find all your problems. The blank page, you haven't fucked anything up yet. The blank page is just free and easy.
I've identified fishing with writing in my mind to the extent that each script is like a trip that you're taking, and you are fishing. And sometimes they're both involve an act of faith. I mean, you're looking at the fucking water and assuming that there's something underneath it that you're going to catch, And it's the same thing with your brain. There's something under there that you're going to get, you think. And sometimes it's sheer faith alone that sustains you because you think, God damn it, nothing, there's not a bite today, nothing is happening.